Welcome all. Welcome back to the Believe in Our State podcast. I'm Tyler Carter.
I'm Cody Van Lelo.
Boy, whew, well, to say that it didn't go our way on Saturday would be a huge understatement. Um, yeah, I mean, Cam Scatterbo ran up, down, and around and through this Iowa State defense offense. After the first drive, it did look like they were going to get something going, but I just the offense was out of sync the entire game, and yeah, we just end up getting destroyed 45-19. I think really the undoing of this game was the three straight turnovers in three consecutive possessions, and that's what did us in.
hmm Yeah, I think that game it was still winnable. Like even after Iowa State went down 14. Yeah, but just those turnovers really killed us. The things that we like to capitalize on are the things that killed us. So I think it's just us getting a taste of our own medicine, and also Cam Scatterboo just could not be tackled. I just no one was able to tackle him, whether it was our secondary, our linebackers, or even our D linemen. The whole team struggled to tackle Cam Scatterboo, and it almost felt like that dude was basically covered in butter, and he
It,
just couldn't be
it
tackled.
it did, man. Like he couldn't be tackled at all, no matter what level they're trying to get the ball. I'm like, dude, tackle him, like gang tackle. Like what y'all were doing in the first half, they gang tackled like they were doing a pretty good job, and then on certain situations they let Levitt get loose on like a certain third and sevens, third and eights on a fourth down. I'm like, are you got to be kidding me? And it's just like, especially with the deficiencies that they have with their special teams. That's honestly really what made this loss even more disappointing. Obviously, you know, the bright side of it is that like, obviously it's still a great season. Still have a chance to, this is a record breaking season already, but just I'm not gonna lie, it was really disappointing.
Yeah, I think just that game with like what you had like possibly it does feel disappointing, and I definitely felt that on Saturday. So it was just very disappointing. It was just frustrating to watch that. But I mean, you take a look back at it now, you put it in the whole perspective of the season. The season's still a overall success. I mean, you already made history. The title certainly would have been a bonus, but now you can still make history. You can get that 11th win, and I think that still be a success. And speaking of the 11th win possibility, Iowa State will be traveling to Orlando to take on the Miami Hurricanes in the Pop Tarts Bowl. So that game will be uh, on December 28th at 2:30 local Iowa time. It'll be on ABC. So I think this will be another good opportunity. This will be a possible good win against a pretty decent Miami team. We'll have to see what the status of Cam Ward, but based on what I saw in a was it a Facebook or Instagram live that Cam Ward and Drew Sanders were doing, Cam Ward he didn't outright say he'd play, but he is alluding that he would possibly play in the Pop Tarts Bowl.
Which is good because just you want to have you want to have that because then when the best players play, it's always a much better game. And just with Colorado, as much as people hit on Colorado, Dion is definitely an old school coach. So where he's like, yeah, these players are going to play no matter what their draft status is. So just having that type of thing in college football, it doesn't seem like all is lost. So it's going to be interesting to see who Miami plays. I know Miles Purchase was alluding to in the post game press conference that said that all the seniors are going to play. So
hmm
we're going to be seeing everybody out there. So
Yeah, I think that's going to be the thing with Iowa State too. We'll just have to keep a lookout, but from what it looks like to be the whole senior group, because they know there's more history to be made. I think just with
hmm
I mean, I get it, like, and that's going to be a thing that maybe can be just like on the checkbox. You get a successful bowl because that's been another thing. That's been one of the things that Campbell has been criticized for. What's his postseason record? He hasn't been that great in the postseason outside of that early Liberty Bowl and that Fiesta Bowl. He hasn't really had success in the postseason. So I think this is a good opportunity for Matt Campbell to really like at least have some postseason success. And I think that's just a thing to look out for.
yeah, completely agree, man. Now I you know with that let's look at the playoff bracket because the playoff bracket actually went according to plan. I'm not gonna lie, I thought they were gonna put Alabama in there, but it
Hmm.
actually happened according to plan, like we thought. So once again, congrats to Arizona State. They got a first round bye, um, and they it looks like they'll be playing the winner of Clemson, Texas.
Hmm. Yeah, Arizona State with what they showed in their championship game in comparisons to the ACC. Yeah, it was clear that Arizona State was gunning for that bye, and they just took it. Like, and that's a great. That's props to Coach Kenny Dillingham and props to that Arizona State team because they played like they had something. They had something to prove, and they certainly proved it. So they'll be getting the first round bye, and then they'll be playing in the Peach Bowl against either Clemson or Texas. Now, looking at this side of the bracket, not only do you have that, you also have the number one overall seed, undefeated Oregon Ducks with the first round bye, and they'll take on the winner of Tennessee and Ohio State. Now, looking at this side of the bracket, I was on Cornfield Sports Pod yesterday with Safe Armageddon and Matt, and we were talking about the bracket, and we were saying that whoever comes out of this side of the bracket is more than likely going to be the national champion, just given how stacked this field is. You talk about undefeated Oregon, you talk about Ohio State, Tennessee, Texas, and maybe even Arizona State. That this side of the bracket looks really dangerous. So I wouldn't be surprised if the national champion comes from this side of the bracket. What are your thoughts on the first round matchups?
I think Tennessee Ohio State is going to be a very very sneaky one. Tennessee has a very stout defense, and as you saw in the Michigan game, anytime that you can confuse Will Howard with an elite defense like Tennessee has, that's going to be interesting. I want to see how Nico Imaliava does against this Ohio State defense too. The Ohio State has some dogs. That's going to be, I think, the best matchup in this one
Mm-hmm.
on this side. Clemson, Texas. I mean, I don't know if Clemson really has a shot against Texas. The only thing that would probably keep them in the game is that Texas has been struggling on offense, but their defense is elite. So I think Texas will win that one, but um, Clemson's going to struggle offensively.
Yeah, I think Texas's defensive line, I'd say they have probably the best defensive line in the country.
Oh
You
yeah,
see how they disrupt any offense, like for the longest times, how they were able to disrupt Georgia in that game. And I mean, they got to Carson Beck quite a bit. I mean, they Carson Beck was injured like during the SEC championship game. You saw like just how much that impacted Georgia's offense. I mean, Stockton came in and did okay, but he didn't really stand out. So I think Texas defensive line did enough to really at least give Texas a chance to win the SEC championship. But I mean, with them being favored by basically almost two touchdowns, I wouldn't be surprised if Texas just beats the shit out of Clemson, and they go on to the Peach Bowl. And I think with this side of the bracket, I might go Texas or Oregon. That's where I have the semifinal as is Texas versus Oregon. I think I have Oregon edging that side of the bracket out, going to the national championship, and then.
I agree. Yeah,
Mhm. And then with Tennessee, Ohio State, yeah, that one we'll have to see. That might be a defensive slugfest. I don't like the fact that Ohio State is a 7.5 point favorite. I think that spread is too high. I would put more like 3.5, 4.
I put it at 3.5, 4. I
Mm-hmm.
don't think Ohio's. I don't think the shoe is that much of a home field advantage,
Yeah,
especially for
I'm.
Tennessee.
Mm-hmm. I think Tennessee, yeah, it comes down to defense. And I think Tennessee's defense, they might put up a good fight, but I think Ohio State might be a little just they're more talented, I think, and that'll be what gets them through and they get a rematch with Oregon.
Yep.
Okay. So that's that side of the bracket, and Oregon is going to be hosting the Rose Bowl. So at 4 p.m. local time, because obviously those Rose Bowl executives they want that sunset at halftime, and
That
it's no
daggum
surprise.
sunset, bro. I swear.
Hmm. They're so insistent on having it. I'm like, whatever. Anyways, we'll get to this side of the bracket here. Um, Boise State gets the 3 seed, Georgia with the 2 seed, and then Boise State will take on the winner of SMU at Penn State. Georgia will take on the winner of Indiana at Notre Dame.
Mm. Yeah. Um, I don't know if SMU is ready for this type of environment. Like Happy Valley is gonna be crazy, especially and on December 21st, the first day of winter. It's probably gonna be snowing. It's gonna be a whiteout. Like that's
Mm-hmm.
gonna be an amazing. That's gonna be an amazing like just picturesque atmosphere in Happy
Yeah.
Valley. I don't know if SMU is ready for that. So I think that we're Penn. Like if you really look at it, like Penn State really has a chance to make it to the has a really good chance to make it to the semis.
Yeah, I think I said this yesterday as well. I think Penn State had the best draw out of anybody
They
in this
sure do.
playoff because you get to host SMU, and I don't think SMU is prepared to handle the weather that is Penn State. You can't prepare
Right.
for Happy Valley during a whiteout in Dallas. You just can't. And then you look at Boise State. I think Penn State, they're one of the few teams that I think can match up very well against that Boise State team, especially trying to contain Ashton Genty. I think Penn State has one of the best, like, they're probably, them and Texas, I think, are two of the teams that can really match up and they can game plan against Boise State and be able to instill their game plan.
Right, especially with Abdul Carter coming off the edge, he's going to be a top NFL guy.
Hmm.
I mean, yeah, man. With when you have a good D line, anything good things can happen for you. And I mean, if you really look at Boise State's passing game is not really that impressive. So if you shut down Genty, I mean, you've seen what can happen.
Hmm. And then on the other side of the bracket, you have an in-state game between 10 seed Indiana and 7 seed Notre Dame. This is not a matchup that you usually see. So I'm curious about this Notre Dame Indiana matchup given it's going to be in South Bend. This thing might be like 60-40 Notre Dame to Indiana fans.
That's very true. Yeah, you're gonna for context, Indiana's all the way down by Bloomington, which is near Indianapolis, and then South Bend is like in the northwest Indiana. So this is gonna be a interesting game. Like you said, it's probably gonna be 60-40. Um, I mean, is Notre Dame finally going to be ready for a big moment? We have seen time and time again, Cody, that Notre Dame always chokes in these type of moments in the playoff, in the 14 playoff. Every time they've made it, they've gotten killed in the BCS area. They killed them out by Alabama. So, like, is Notre Dame finally ready to like exercise those past demons and make a run?
Yep. And then, yeah, I think Notre Dame might be able to. But then they'll be running into Georgia. Now with Georgia, I'm not too sure how Georgia's going to perform. If Carson Beck it does not play for the Bulldogs, I don't know how. I don't think Georgia's going to get that far in the playoff.
I don't either. I mean, Carson Beck is hurt, especially if he's hurt for an extended amount of time. Yeah, I don't really see Georgia making a run, but if he is just defensively with what they have, I think Georgia can definitely make a run to the Natty.
Hmm. Yeah, so I think I had on this side. I think I had Penn State and James Franklin finally breaking through, finally getting those big time wins and making it to the national championship. So I have my national championship set
Ooh,
as Oregon versus Penn State.
ooh, okay. I like that. All right. So for me, I have Oregon versus Georgia. And but this time around, I think since this is a much more weaker Georgia team, I have Oregon winning the national championship in a close game.
Yeah, I have Oregon winning the national championship as well. I think Oregon with how talented they are, like with that talent that they have on offense and with Dan Lanning, I think Eugene is going to be seeing a national championship. And I'm expecting the Duck just be dunking all over whoever they play in the national championship. And yeah,
No, I agree. Like,
yeah.
yeah, I agree because mainly just because like all the Oregon teams that we've seen before, they were always that finesse team that every time when adversity came, they always fell flat in their face. But this team is tough, man. Like they're
Hmm.
built like an SEC team, and I think Oregon finally has it this year to win it all.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah,
Is there
but
like a
I mean,
certain underdog team that you're going to be cheering for?
obviously Arizona State. Got to cheer
Okay.
on Arizona State. And then I'm curious to see about Boise State. Those two teams I'll be looking out for to see, because now like with how Boise State perform and like what the precedent has been set by the committee, they show that the group of five can in fact get a first round bye. So it gives the G5 an incentive to really be playing like tough games, really play well, and to do what you can in your conference. Like it shows like there is some reasoning to be playing like these big time games. And for seeding as well, you also don't punish any of the teams that did play in the conference championship game. I mean, uh, there was a debate between who'd get in between SMU and Alabama, and I think the committee got it right by putting SMU in that spot instead of Alabama, and you don't punish SMU for losing last second in their conference championship game. Meanwhile, Alabama didn't play a conference championship game, so I do like most of these decisions by the committee. So they did a good job with this first college football playoff bracket.
Right, and like when you consider SMU's only loss was out of conference to BYU, like,
Hmm.
and that's their first loss, which is in the conference title game. Yeah, you can't
Yeah,
penalize them for that.
yeah, and that's the thing that I think. And boy, did the SEC, some of the SEC people did not like it at all. They're out here like complaining about might as well not schedule like these tough non-con games. Well, the problem is
You
Alabama.
already do.
Yeah, exactly. You already don't like your losses, and I'm talking about like Alabama and Ole Miss. I think their losses were all in conference.
Yep.
So you can't use that non-con excuse when you steamrolled everybody in when you played a pretty weak non-con. Like I mean, I guess Alabama had the edge over Ole Miss in the non-con because Wisconsin is a power like it's a Big Ten team, but Wisconsin is not even going bowling, so you can't really use
Right.
them. Then Ole Miss, I don't even know. I don't remember who they played. I think they played like Furman or whatever. But they looked bad against Kentucky, who is a bottom feeder in the SEC. And they did lose to an LSU team who I believe has 3 or 4 losses. Then they lost to a Florida team who is 500.
Yeah, like that's the point. Like they
Hmm.
they they, they can talk about they can talk about already playing that Charmin soft um uh non-con schedule like they all want, but they don't pay attention to the conference losses. That's what kept them out of the playoff.
Hmm.
Like you're not going to make the playoff if you can if you lost by 3 touchdowns on the road to a mid Oklahoma team, a very very average Vanderbilt team, and
I
then
I'd say
like
this was an above average Vanderbilt team, but it's still
But
Vandy.
yeah, it's still Vandy. You can't lose to Vandy, especially with being a team like Alabama. Like
Hmm.
yeah. So it should be interesting to see how obviously Bama fans aren't taking 9-3 very well, even though a lot of places would kill to be 9-3. But this is Bama, so 9-3 isn't acceptable there.
Yep.
All right, now, uh, yeah. So that's the football front right here. But hey, we got a rivalry game for basketball. Let's get into that.
Yeah, actually, yeah, we have two this week. So on
Oh yeah.
Wednesday, yeah, so on Wednesday at 8 o'clock local time on Fox Sports One, you have the number 18 Iowa State Cyclones taking on the number 21 Iowa Hawkeyes in the women's Cyhawk
Mm-hmm.
game. Now, Iowa State has been kind of disappointing, just with the way, like I think early on they've been a little disappointing given their preseason expectations. They didn't they didn't look too great, like in like some of these games, they haven't looked too great. Obviously, they got absolutely destroyed by South Carolina during that Thanksgiving tournament, but
Right.
I think that might be more indicative of how South Carolina is playing because they
Mm-hmm.
just like in the last week they put belt to ass on Purdue. They put belt to ass on number 9 TCU, and then they took care of
Wow.
business against number number 8 Duke. So maybe it's like maybe South Carolina is like I think that game, Iowa State, South Carolina, I think that was more indicative of South Carolina than it was of Iowa State.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
So
people were over. I'm like, you guys, like, South Carolina might just be a wagon, you guys. Like,
yeah,
it doesn't mean that the team is bad. It just means that South
yeah,
Carolina is very, very good.
And also, mind you, we ran into South Carolina right after they lost to UCLA by 15. So I think we played a really pissed off South
Mm-hmm.
Carolina, and they just took out all their anger on us.
Yep.
So I guess,
Um,
yep, that softens the blow a little bit. So I can't be too mad. Meanwhile,
it,
for Iowa, they are coming off a loss against unranked Tennessee. This was the Champions
mm,
Classic. Um, so I think Tennessee has been pretty solid. They're usually a solid like women's basketball team, so solid. But yeah, they lost. Um, yeah, this was actually an even game. This was a pick'em game, and Tennessee was able to pull away late in that fourth quarter because this game was tight. This game was tight, and then they just pulled away. So I know both teams like this should be a pretty good like a matchup, but I think the thing with it being in Carver Hawkeye, I do not recall the last time Iowa State had won at CHA against Iowa.
mm. So it should be an interesting matchup post Bluter, post Caitlin Clark
Yeah.
for the clones. So
Hmm.
I'm really, really, it's going to be interesting. So if you want to watch that, definitely tune in on Wednesday.
Hmm.
Thursday, aren't we also playing on FS1 or is that one
Yeah, it looks like yeah. So both Cyhawk games will be on FS1. The
sweet?
men's team it will be at 6:30 local time the next day, and this one I think I'm looking at Iowa State, number 3 in the country. They're playing a pretty solid Iowa team, and Iowa's actually looked better. I think they found something right now, and I think this is going to be a tournament team for Iowa. I think Fran McCaffrey's got a tournament team. They look pretty solid. Owen Freeman looks pretty good. Brock Harding as well. So this one, it being in Iowa City, I think Iowa would love nothing more than to be able to upset the number 3 ranked Iowa State Cyclones. And I would like this is just going to be a really tough road test because this is the first true road test for this Iowa State team.
Yeah, I mean, this is always one of these games to where, like, what was it, a few years ago, where they like blew us out of the gym when we went there. Was in 2022. They just got
Yeah,
hot. Like Iowa is one of those teams where if they're knocking down shots, like Iowa is hard to beat. The good thing is that Iowa doesn't defend at all, so you can also score with them. Which I mean, and Ken Palm were top 10 ranked offense, so I
hmm,
think if that were to happen we will be able to score with them as well.
yeah. And I mean, I look at our front court mainly. I mean, Joshua Jefferson and Deshaun Jackson. I love the fact that we have like a front court, so now we aren't just relying on having those guys there, having a front court just to kick it out right back to the guards. And I mean, the guard play is going to be pretty good. I think Iowa State has one of the best guard duos in the country with Taman Lipsy and Keyshawn Gilbert, and then you have like good scores in like Curtis Jones and Milan Momcilovic for you, and then that front court we mentioned earlier. I think that front court might set the tone because
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I was gonna say that. I was gonna say that was gonna be my next point. I'm like, the front court is gonna be the difference in this game. I think for us to pull away in this game, even if they're like, even if they only hit like a few shots, and really just the comfort of having multiple scores, even our bigs being able to score. Taman doesn't even have to score anymore. He had to do that like his first few years because offensively we're inept. But
hmm.
like when you got a bunch of scores like we do, he can just truly be a point guard and dish and assist. And people may say what's wrong with him, but hey, he might just be adjusting to this new role to
Yeah,
where he doesn't have to do much and be an actual point guard.
yeah, and I think it looks like that this might be more of his natural role. I think
Mm-hmm.
he can score, but I think he like better when he's got guys around him that can score, so he can distribute the ball and like lead the offense. I think this is I think this is the more natural role that he was supposed to be recruited into Iowa State as. But yeah, because of like the lack of offensive firepower, Taman Lips did kind of have to be the guy when it comes
Right.
to like scoring and making plays. But now he's got playmakers like Keyshawn Gilbert and Milan Momcilovic, and then you got a spark on offense with Curtis Jones. You have a great supporting cast around Taman Lipsey, and then I think he could truly conduct this great offense. And then obviously defensively, everybody on defense, like we've seen a rise in Nate Heisey and Branson Chatfield on the defensive end.
Mm-hmm.
Nate Heisey with some great defensive minutes, and that's great for this Iowa State team.
Yeah, man, they're great sparks on defense. I think offensively, I think I like Noyes and Deschidis when the
Mm,
minutes that he can provide
yeah.
as a young guy. And I didn't get to watch the game because I was driving back
Hmm.
yesterday, but I heard that D Watt got some minutes yesterday.
Yeah. Demarion Watson did get some minutes. I mean, he was coming back from injury, so
Okay,
he
now we
like
know
he
why he wasn't playing.
yeah, because he had that cut, like he cut it open his foot. I'm guessing during Maui, so it might have been like one of their off days or do something like that. They must have done something, and I think Demarion Watson must have cut open his foot, so that's why he was out for some time. So he got minutes. He didn't put up anything too great. Didn't put up too great of stats. Wasn't too great. Yeah, didn't look too great. But I mean, he's coming back from an injury, so
Hmm.
I think he's getting back to being acclimated to playing uh in this like a system. So I trust that Demarion Watson with time will be able to be a good piece off of the bench.
Completely agree, man. Yeah. Do you have any other things that you would like to cover? Because honestly, really, content wise, we're not going to really have anything for the next few weeks until the bowl game and stuff. I mean, I guess we can do like a bowl game breakdown, and I know next week, prior or in the next week or in a few weeks, me and Eric are going to be talking about the 2025 recruiting class.
Yeah,
But
yeah. I
yeah.
guess yeah. Taking a look at so about an hour ago, the AP poll for the for men's basketball did come out. So kind of wanted to take a look at that and just explore and kind of get our thoughts on this poll. So we had some movement. We did have some movement over this week and over this past week. We did have some movement here.
Mm.
Tennessee has moved up 2 spots to that number 1 spot in the country.
Man, I mean Tennessee, they have a great squad there. Rick Barnes has that program rolling. As you know, Auburn's a great team. I figured that we'd, if not number one, I figured that we'd be moving to the top three
Yeah.
with the week that we had last week, especially beating Marquette at home pretty handily.
Yep. And then yeah, I think of saying like Auburn staying at 2 makes sense, even though they lose to Duke. I guess it if they wanted to keep up with the head-to-head thing, it makes sense to keep Auburn there because that was the only way they were gonna move. Is like the only way Iowa State would have moved like up is if Auburn would have moved down and
Right.
or then that whole like head-to-head thing. So it's good to see that they do like to a level keep up with the head-to-head and keeping Auburn ahead of us, which I'm fine with.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, yeah. I just for my sake, selfishly, I really, really hope that we get a chance to play them again in the tournament.
Oh, I think we might honestly. We'll have to see. With the way these two teams are playing, I think maybe a final Elite Eight Final Four matchup. That
Oh,
would be where we could
definitely.
see it. Yep.
I mean, I want to look at a few surprise teams. I mean, you got Florida coming in at number nine. Florida's 9-0 right now. You also see Oklahoma in there at 13 at 9-0. Like, man,
You've got
and
yeah, Oregon, Hawaii
Mississippi
State.
State. Wow. Okay.
Yeah, the that SEC ACC challenge was thoroughly dominated by the SEC. They went 14-2 during that
Yeah.
challenge.
SEC is. I mean, look, we gotta start taking the SEC seriously as a basketball conference now. I mean, they have solid teams.
Hmm.
I'm not afraid to admit that the SEC is a pretty good basketball conference.
Yeah. Taking a look here, Kansas plummets 9 spots after the week they had, losing at Creighton and then losing at Mizzou in the border war.
Yeah, that's crazy. KU, they got to get it figured out before conference play. That was an ugly week for them.
Yeah, yeah. Right now, it looks like the Big 12 is going to be running through Iowa State, but I think Kansas, Houston, Baylor, and everybody in the conference they're going to figure it out. But right now, the
Oh yeah,
conference is Iowa State's to take.
yep. It's ours to take, and for ours to lose it.
Hmm.
Yeah, this is gonna be very interesting, and it's gonna be interesting come you know when conference season rolls around at the end of the month for everybody, because basically almost everybody in college basketball is going to be have a 20 game season. So
Hmm.
just for us, I'm really really reared up and ready to go to get conference play going for us.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, A lot of games. Yeah, there's going to be a lot of things to look ahead to when it comes to basketball. And I think now you're starting, like, with the college football kind of winding down, basketball is going to be the main focus. And I'm here for it. I'm ready for this crazy chaos that is college basketball.
Same, bro. I think you know. Usually, I'm still not, but I mean, I think the basketball mode for me has gotten to acceleration mode with the Cowboys stinking this year. Usually, I'm like, well, where are they going to be in the playoffs? Now I'm like, I can't worry about that because they ain't making it because they stink this year.
Yep. Hmm.
So, yeah. So,
Let's take a look here real quick.
yeah.
And actually, take a look here. Wrestling. So wrestling during the past week had been in Las Vegas for the Cliff Keen Invitational, and Iowa State put six wrestlers up on the podium. So you had, well, actually, I think Iowa State placed fifth overall in the tournament. You had teams like Oklahoma State. You had wrestler teams like Nebraska, Virginia Tech, and Ohio State. So those are some like the power. So you end up getting some really really notable wrestling programs. So Iowa State with a solid like fifth place finish, finishing top five. That isn't too shabby.
No, especially in a very high profile tournament like that. Anytime you can place fifth in a tournament, and then very prestigious tournament like that with top programs in the nation,
Yep.
put your program on the map.
Hmm. So notable things to note here is Evan Frost finished runner up at 133 pounds. He was in the final before he fell to Cal Poly's Zeth Romney 7-3 in the finals. So pretty good tournament for Evan Frost. Anthony Echemendia placed fourth with his 4-2 record in the tournament, and then you had other top 10 finishes with Jacob Frost finishing fifth at 141 pounds. Panero Johnson getting back into form. He placed seventh at 157 pounds. Evan Bachman with a sixth place finish at 184 pounds. And Christian Carroll finishing at in eighth at 197 pounds. So overall, pretty successful tournament for these wrestlers, and very excited to see them back in Hilton when the time comes. But overall, we'll keep a lookout for wrestling and see how that goes.
For sure. All right. Well, that will conclude our podcast. Thank you guys for joining us as always on our daily, weekly, afternoon recap shows. And we can be found on Twitter. Cody for Cody, that's at Matt Campbell Impersonator. I am at Sci Guy. Find us on all of our five forms of social media. Bleav it. How you spell it is Bleav. We can be found on your favorite um, on your favorite podcast provider, and we can also be found on our social media on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and X. So for Tyler Carter,
For Cody Vancillo,
this is the Bleav in Iowa State podcast. Roll clones, baby.
let's go State.